Okay, so the recording has started. Okay, so welcome and thank you for joining me. I know it's a bit short notice, but I wanted to meet with yourselves before sharing this information a bit more widely with the new parents that are coming in tonight for their first meeting with myself and the foundation stage team, and more widely with the school. So I'm going to go through quite a bit of information as quickly and succinctly as I can for you, and then I'll answer your questions as I go, as you think of them, but there'll also be an opportunity at the end to ask any questions that you have. And if you don't want to ask them publicly, that's absolutely fine as well. You can always email me or ring me or whatever you want to do afterwards. So as many of you all know, over the last couple of years, there's been a fall in birth rate across the borough and actually nationally. So that means there's been a reduction in the number of children entering schools. And that's been really positive for all your children this year because they've had a nice small cohort of 16 children in each class. That's been a real luxury for us. But unfortunately, we're looking at a similar number for next year as well, which has means out of a potential 56 children, we've only got about 31. We're getting calls all the time and numbers are changing, and until we know what the number in September, that might fluctuate, but I can't, based on last year, I can't imagine that changing much. So as you can imagine, that has quite a large impact on our budget. And although I don't want to speak about finance, unfortunately, I have to work within a budget, probably like most of you do within your work. So it has meant we've had to have a look at some organisational changes and the structure of our classes for next year. We looked at a variety of options, but September we're going to be moving to the following structure. So we'll have 3 mixed foundation stage year 1 classes and 2 year 2 classes. So we will, instead of having 6 classes across the school, we will have 5 classes. We've chosen this model because we feel it's the best option, and we feel we can still offer your child a really high quality education and school experience. And I'll talk a little bit, because it's not your typical mixed FS year 1 model, so I want to go into a bit more detail about it, so bear with me. You might be thinking at this stage, why have they not just got 1 class of children if it's quite a small number? Well, unfortunately, we aren't able to do this. There's a legal maximum of the number of children you can have in a foundation stage and key stage 1 class of 30. In both year groups, we're just over that number, so we can't just have 1 class. We also have to be able to provide spaces for children because of our admissions policy, which you do 2 years in advance. We have to provide 56 spaces if that many children were going to join. So what we wouldn't want to do is put in a structure that we can't maintain for the entire year, and then mid-year we're having to make changes because lots of children have joined. That wouldn't be good for you, your child, or the staff. So this way we feel we wouldn't have those issues. So that's the structure. So the benefits. So the benefits of doing this, because you might be thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not sure about that. So hopefully this will explain some of the benefits of doing this model. It will help us maintain small class sizes. So your child will still benefit from being in a smaller class size than an average school. So about 20, 21 children. Now we may have children join our school, and I hope we do, because that would be really helpful. But based on numbers coming in this year, I think that's quite unlikely. We might get 1 or 2, but I think any more than that would be unrealistic. So I would imagine the class sizes will stay at 20, 21 for the entire year. It'll ensure a smoother transition from the early years curriculum into Key Stage 1. That's a tricky transition for the children because they're moving from a very exploratory, play-based learning approach to Key Stage 1, which is a bit more formal. So we feel this will bridge that gap much better. They'll still have contact with the staff that they've developed really good relationships with, and you know them really well, and that will really help us, like I say, to make sure that transition is really good for your child. The year 1 children will still benefit from being taught as year 1. So this is where it's a bit different from your normal model, because we're going to all the children that are are able to work within the year one curriculum will go into a classroom and be taught as year one all the core subjects. And I'll show you a timetable in a minute, which might help you, because if you're like me, I'm a visual person. And that will give children that are ready for year one the opportunity to go and learn from an experienced teacher in year one and do their English, maths and reading. And then it'll also give opportunity for the children who aren't quite ready and who are still working within the early years curriculum, the opportunity to still access that curriculum and that learning style. Children will benefit, your children will become the experts for the younger children, and a positive role model, which research has shown actually really helps them. It helps them because they know that they're helping the younger ones, but it also helps the younger ones because they'll have some really positive role models. Mixed grouping can enhance and nurture deeper thinking, problem solving skills, vocabulary and social competencies. And some of your children will actually know the children because they will have been in nursery with them. So, you know, those social skills and all those things, they'll be able to continue to develop. There's a greater sense of cooperation and opportunities to work with a wider circle of peers and opportunities to build friendships from across year groups. They will now have a couple of years with the same teacher, some of the children, so that will provide them with a perfect opportunity for the teachers to develop that deeper understanding of your child's needs, their strengths, as well as their challenges, and therefore in a stronger position to better support their learning. So like I said, this is different from a traditional mixed class model in that we will be teaching your children during the morning as a year one cohort with an experienced year one teacher. So hopefully my next slide will help you understand that a bit more. So this is just an example timetable of roughly what it looks like, because we'll have assemblies and other things to pop in there. But just to give you an idea, the blue is where they'll be as their class, so they're mixed foundation stage year one class. They're the times they'll be together, and the white is when they'll be taught as a year one. So you can see it's all the core, it's the phonics, it's the English, it's the reading, it's the maths. They'll have break time with the year twos. But much like now, they come into their class, don't they? They have their register with their class, and then often they have that explore time when they're doing their indoor outdoor learning. It will be very similar to that, but we'll just be incorporating another room, which is Maple. It's a nice large classroom, so we'll easily fit the children in there for the year one lessons, and then they'll come back together at lunchtime. We're going to have all the children will be out in the main playground, and that's why they'll also be coming in all together in the mornings as well and going home together. So, and our playground will look very different next year. I have a lot of new things, as I've put previously in newsletter. So it will be the core subjects they'll be taught as a year group, and then the foundation subjects, which we'll teach in our classes. So they'll have their whole class input, but then we'll still have the opportunity for the children to be inside, outside learning, the teachers taking out small groups to do additional geography, history, music. They'll still have the PE coach. So all those things will still happen. They'll just be in their mixed group for those subjects. We work into the year one topics, but very much thinking about the foundation children, what they need, and then the year one children and what they need. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of how it will look. And now there'll be an opportunity for questions if I haven't covered. Like I say, you might want to reflect on, think about the meeting and then come back to me. That's absolutely fine as well. Lucy, have you got a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple. The first is might be hard to answer, but do you have a sense of how this might impact when they then transition into year two? Because my understanding is there'll now be a bigger jump from year one to year two than there has been previously.
I think because we're going to be doing the core subjects as year one, that will really aid their transition to year two. And also, when we get to this end of the year next year, we'll be very mindful that their experience to our current year ones has been different. So we will plan in and prepare opportunities for them to help them with that transition. But all the core subjects that they'll be taught as year one will be exactly the same when they're in year 2, so they'll be very familiar with it. They'll be very familiar with the playground. They'll be with the year 2s a lot of the time. They will still have those assembly opportunities. So I don't foresee it being a big problem, but it will definitely be something that we will think about in our preparations for transition for next year.
Thank you. And then my other questions, just quickly, because I know others have got questions, were do you have a sense of how much their class makeup will change from FS to year 1 now? Because obviously previously there was, I think, probably fairly minimal change when they were staying in 2 class groups. And also, how will you ensure those that need it are stretched in their learning?
Yeah, so there'll be about 10 children in each class. Again, because they're having those core lessons in their year group, they will, and we'll still have our support staff who will be providing, as well as our within lessons. Within the foundation subjects, we'll also do that. So we'll be using the support staff, the teachers within that time to take out children to do the stretch challenge, but also the keep up work that we've always done. We don't envisage any of that changing. I think I've answered that question. There were 2 parts.
Thank you. Yes, no, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have we got any other questions? I'm just going to stop sharing my screen because I think it might be easier to see. If there are, I don't think anyone, unless anyone just wants to unmute. Kate, oh, Mrs. Clark. Did you want to say something? Kathy, do you want to ask your question?
Well, it was only a statement saying, I think the positive is they're still staying to small classes. I think my fear was it might be that they're going to bigger classes, and we have had a real luxury with that. I think the kids have really benefited. So it was just, yeah, for me, it's a positive way to maintain what they've already had rather than bringing them out into big classes.
And I think it is going to be something different, and I understand it's probably not what you're expecting, but you know, we'll work with the children, the staff, to make sure that it's really successful and works really well for them, all the children. Steve, did you have a question? Oh, I think you're on mute, or I can't hear you.
Yeah, so my computer was off mute, but my headset was on mute, so double muted. Yeah, firstly, thank you for taking us through that. My question is, I suppose, more like sort of personality type. So if you had an older, bolder year 1 compared to a younger, slightly more not nervous, but anxious or just an early stage child needs a bit more support, how would you think about stuff like that when it comes to the classes, is what I'm saying, so that the personalities and the way that children behave kind of match up and make it easier for them all to have success?
Yeah, when we look at the classes, the teachers obviously know the children really well, so they look at the different personalities, the different strengths of the children. We look at the children that need extra support, and we make sure there's a fair balance. We also take into consideration the children's friendships, so we always ask them you know, who are their friends, and we try to make sure they've got at least one of those friends within their group. But I think the benefit of this system is, in terms of socially and emotionally, they're going to be with these children a lot more than they would be across the year group, because of the way we're going to teach the foundation curriculum. Again, if your children were moving to year 1, we'd have a lot of the same issues that you're talking about, where you have children who are really strong in a subject or need support, and it's our quality first teaching foremost for those children. So when we have them as a year 1 group, we will be doing our quality first teaching, as well as planning in interventions again for that stretch and challenge, as well as the support. So that's our normal practice that we would do, whether we're a mixed group or a single group. We'll be doing that all the time, core subjects, but also foundation subjects.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think we've got a Jess. Sorry, I'm going with first names because it's easier. Oh no, is it
Hello.
Jess?
Yes. Hello. Yes. I just wondered if this is this a new model, or has this been tried before? I was just wondering if, I know you said that it's not typical, but is this a kind of a model that's been used before in other primary schools?
I'm not 100% sure on that, actually. I think the typical model of mixed year groups, which I think will become more common in schools because of the fall in birth rate. And some schools are already doing that model already. I think for us, because we've got that 32 children, but there are some children who would benefit from continuing with the early years curriculum. So we've got about 30, say.
Yeah.
We felt we could teach them as a year one. So I think probably we've created it because we think it's the best option, and we always think about the children and what's best for them and making sure their learning journey impacted negatively. So I think probably, I don't know if other schools have tried it, but it's certainly what we feel would be best and what would work and enable us to still deliver a high quality provision for your children.
Thank you.
That's okay. Mike, have you got a question?
I sort of have it. It's almost a progression of a question a couple of moments ago, which is around, some of the children will be almost 6 years old, and those that are new are coming in that are going to be sort of just 4. So it's nearly a 2-year age gap in the same classroom. And it's just making sure that there's the opportunity to still have that progression, rather than being, when you have a vast gap in age, there's obviously going to be distractions, and that's one element of it, just to understand how you keep that separation and making sure that those that need to progress are progressing, and there's the right sort of learning for each age group. And then the second question is, from just really putting it back at you, is what do you foresee as the challenges of these groups being mixed together?
Mrs. Holder, I can answer if you want. It's Mrs. Clark.
Oh, go ahead, and then I'll jump in after.
Okay. We're all obviously professionals. I've taught in mixed year groups before. We've also taught all the way up to year 6. Mrs. Pelling's experienced in lots of different year groups. Basically, within any classroom, you are differentiating work all day, every day, according to the child's needs. I think what everyone's getting a bit confused with is that all the children in year 1 will basically be together for the whole morning doing the year 1 curriculum. And then the afternoon, they will come down to foundation and mix with the foundation children, but we will be basing our learning on the year 1 curriculum topics. So they will still get that learning. We will basically bring the year 1 work down to foundation level for the foundation children, if that makes sense. I'll let you carry on, Mrs. Holder.
Well, I was just going to say, in addition to that, we'll do our normal provision of assessments that we would do normally for the children. So that shows us where the children are in their learning, and then we adapt and put in support and challenge where we need it, depending on those assessments. That will still all be exact. We don't foresee much being different to what we'd normally provide for our year 1 children, because at the start of year 1, you still have to do a transition and handover from the foundation stage into year 1. I think the best thing for this is that I don't think your children are going to really have a struggle or a challenge with that, because it's going to seem very similar, albeit slightly different, and they'll fit right into that year 1 curriculum. I suppose the challenges, I mean, I'm always really honest with people. It is a change for us, isn't it? And it is something different. But I think from our Ofsted, you can be reassured that you've got the right school and the right high quality staff leadership to implement this really well and be very thoughtful and mindful of what we're doing. So I think, although it is new for us, we've put a lot of thought into this. We've done a lot of research, and we will continue to do that. And as things go, we will quickly and swiftly adapt things if they're not working, and then try to make sure that we make sure there is a success. We fully, want it to be a success, and we don't want it to be you coming back to me next year saying, well, that didn't work out. I want you to come to me and say they had a great year. That would be my aim. But yeah, so I think that's probably the challenge at the moment. It is something new, it is something different. I think I worry because I know it may cause worries and anxieties for you. I get that, I'm a parent, and I just want to reassure you that we will do our best. I've got a really experienced team, all the same staff. We're not losing staff, and I've got high quality staff who've been here many years with lots of experience. So I'm confident it's going to work out really well. Leanne, did you have a question?
I didn't necessarily have a question, but just a couple of things I wanted to mention, because obviously I've had a son who's recently moved on to year 3. A couple of things. I know somebody asked whether it's like common and other schools do it. I know in the area there are quite a lot of schools that do the mixed learning. However, I think the benefit of the structure that you're proposing is that they are separated for the core areas, and therefore for the ones that have the children who are sort of quite advanced and need that stretch, they'll still have that opportunity to, more so than if both foundation and year 1 were being taught those core subjects collectively. So I think personally for me, I think this setup feels a lot better from that sense. And the other thing I was going to say is, from experience, I think the struggle from foundation to year 1 was far greater, and it will definitely give those other children who maybe aren't quite ready for that a softer sort of start into year 1. Yes, they'll have the curriculum that they obviously clearly need to be moving towards, but it won't feel as much of a jump. And I equally think it's far more important to keep the year 2s separate, because actually the biggest transition is year 2 to 3, and it will really get them ready for that, as opposed to sort of mixing the year 1s and 2s. So I just wanted to say, from experience, I think this structure seems to be a good one.
Thank you, Leanne. I was just going to mention, because we've put a lot of work into the year 2, year 3 transition this year. So when we get there, again, we're doing lots of work around that as well. There was a question in the chat that I've just seen about this feels more like a change for the teachers than pupils, i.e. the challenge of keeping year 1 at pace with less time. Will there be additional support for them? They're in a noisy office, that's why I haven't asked it publicly, but the staff are all fully aware of the strategy, and we'll be working together and supporting each other through this. Obviously Mrs. Clark is exceptional early years lead with Miss Giles, so they've got that strength of that early years practice. But then I've also got Mrs. Pellin, who's got lots of year 1 experience, and like Mrs. Clark has taught in other year groups as well, including foundation days, so she knows about that movement. And I feel we've got a really strong team in there. We'll work together. There's not actually much that is going to change them, because we'll still be following Little Wandle, we'll still be following our math scheme and all those things. The foundation subjects will look a little bit different, but like Mrs. Clark said, we're steering it towards the year 1 curriculum and then adapting it for foundation stage children. So that will be my challenge tonight, trying to get that across to those parents about how we're going to support them. And you've helped me prepare for that now, so that's thank you. I will share the slides after the meeting. That's absolutely fine. And that was another comment. I think I've got more questions. Have we got Jessica?
Hi, yes, thank you. I think a couple of them you've kind of answered, so thank you. And again, a bit echoing some of the thoughts that people have said, I kind of really appreciate you taking the time. And as you said, it's obviously spent a lot of time and effort trying to think of a way around, which is really quite a tricky situation. And the 2 questions I had was, when the classes are split, so when the year 1s all come together, how is that going to work from a teaching perspective? Because obviously you've got effectively then 2 classes and 3 teachers. So would the year 1 get 2 teachers and the foundation get 1, or how's that going to work?
So in the morning, the year 1 children will go with Mrs. Pelling, because she's the experienced in Maple, and then we'll still have Miss Giles and Mrs. Clark with the foundation stage children. So we'll still have 3 classes, even though how their curriculum works when they open up and it's the explore time. But we'll still have 3 teachers and then the 3 support staff as well across the board. In the afternoons, they'll come together as classes for input into music, geography, whatever subject it is. they'll come as a class, because then it's their nice small cohort. The teacher will know them really well. They'll know who to target specific questions at, whether that's a more harder question or an easier one for the younger children. And then there'll be that explore time, and that's when they'll pick out groups of children to really do that guided group work. But there'll still be 3 teachers, and there'll be 2 support staff in the afternoon. So there'll be 5 adults across the board for the 60 children, which we're quite fortunate at, because again, that's quite a luxury. Has that answered that?
Yeah, I think so. And then the other one was, sorry, I'm in a busy office as well. Ella is my eldest, so I haven't got experience going through the years, but I do bear in mind that probably was other teachers covering year 1, and you mentioned that no staff are being made redundant as a result. So what is the plan for those teachers?
We have been through a process school, so we have had to make redundancy voluntary, I'm pleased to say, and 1 staff member is leaving us to take up a new opportunity. So there have been changes, which is why I haven't been able to share anything with you before now, because it was all being resolved before half term. So there have been changes to staffing, but you'll see all the staff that are on the class list is lots of experienced staff, and Mrs. Hayford is covering we've got maternity cover because Mrs. Pace is expecting. So there's been different opportunities for people, without going into the nitty gritty, but we have had to go through a process as a staff.
Thank you.
Okay. I've just got another question will some of the children change class? Yes, they will, because we'll have that Maple class, because there'll be 3, but some of them may remain in Beech or Chestnut, depending on how the groups have been split. And you'll find that all out next week when we have our transition day. You'll get all the classes, so then you'll be able to see, and you might want to come back to me with more questions then, which is absolutely happy to answer any questions anytime. I want to be as open and transparent with you as I can. I think I've got, I want to say Oliver, but I can't see the full name.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yes, thanks again, just echoing other people in terms of appreciate you sharing this information. Looking at the timetable, it looks roughly around like 3 hours in the morning on the year 1 curriculum, and then 2 hours in their kind of mixed groups. Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of truncating of the year 1 curriculum to accommodate that, or is this like it's what I'm trying to say, are we squashing the year 1 curriculum to free up that kind of core piece, or is it just a case of you're doing the year 1 curriculum in those classes in those 3 hours, and they're doing what they would have done anyway? It's just that it will be kind of split learning because you're covering the same subject, but half the class will be doing it at a year 1 and half the class will be doing it at foundation.
It's exactly how we do it now. It's no different. The year 1s, year 2s as well. All of our core subjects are taught in the morning when the children are a bit more alert, fresher, not quite so tired. And then we do our foundation subjects in the afternoon. So that won't change. We haven't had to cut the year 1 curriculum or squeeze anything in. It's absolutely as we teach it now.
Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, just a follow-on question.
Yes, sorry.
Separate question. What's the plan for telling the children? Like, for example, I know that Theo's been like super excited about talking about moving up. So, what's the plan around that?
Yeah, so we'll do it as part of our transition next week. So during that day where they have their visit in the afternoon, we'll make sure we do something with work with the children prior to the visit, so they understand. They will still very much be moving up, and we want them to feel like they're moving up, because some of them are really excited, aren't they, about going to year 1, and they will still get in. They will feel like when they go to their year 1 class, they will still feel like they'll have that physical going to Maple, which is currently a year 1 classroom. They will still get all of that, so I think that will help them understand. And I think some of them, I know I was showing, we had new children visiting on Monday that are starting in September, and some of them have been to nursery with the current. So I think they're, they were really excited to see children that they used to be friends with at nursery. So I think there will be an element of that as well, for some of the children that know those children. But yeah, so we'll do some work with them. And I think following transition, we can see if there's any other things we need to pick up on. We'll see how that visit goes. If we need to do further visits or further work, we will absolutely do that as well.
Thank you very much.
That's okay. I'm just going to check the chat because I don't think there's any other any hands up. So there'll be one. So is there only one class for the morning setting with one teacher, or did I misunderstand? I think they're busy in the background. So with the sick child. So they'll be in their 3 classes. They'll come in for register in the morning. We'll still do lunches, their travel tracker, all those sorts of admin tasks that we do first thing. And then the year 1 children will go to their year 1 class for their year 1 learning with the 1 teacher and teaching assistant, just like a normal class environment. It will be slightly larger than they're used to currently, but I think they'll be ready for it and that's, you know, they're more mature, aren't they? They're more used to the school, and we'll obviously take into account all their different abilities as we would normally. And then they'll come back as their class at lunchtime and over the rest of the day. So I hope that's answered that question. I can see another hand up. Anna, have you got a question?
Hi, yeah, you sort of just answered actually. It was about the sort of morning setup and how that will work. I just wondered about where I'm sure you thought of this, but where they'll actually be sat. So will there be 30 children in one classroom? Because I know it's obviously different. They've got desks and it's a bit more kind of crammed in. How's that going to work from a physical point of view?
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know if you remember, but Maple Class is a very large classroom in year 1. It's like a really large classroom and a very small one, which is Sycamore, and we'll use that for breakout targeted group work during that morning as well. But there's plenty of space. There is enough space for table chairs, but there's also plenty of space on the carpet for 30 spaces. We're really fortunate that we've got that classroom, and a normal class size in a normal school is 30.
So there'll be 30 children with Mrs. Pelling doing that part. Will there be like an assistant as well, or
Yeah, there'll be a teaching assistant in there, and again, very experienced teaching assistant.
Okay,
and can't think. I've lost my thought now. I was going to say something, but yeah. So
sorry, just one more question as well. I know normally the children get a chance to input who they might want to be in a class with going up. Is that still something that you do, or?
Yeah, Mrs. Clark, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to answer that one about the class makeup?
Yeah, so we asked the children 3 names of who they want to go with, and then we obviously make a note of that. But we do have to split the children according to who plays with who gets on, obviously according to ability, children's needs. So yeah, we do obviously, as Mrs. Holding says, give them at least one friend that they've suggested. Sometimes they just suggest people they've played with that day, but we know the children really well, and you know they are going to be with each other the whole morning and or not most of the afternoon, so they will see each other all the time.
Has that answered your question?
Sorry, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Someone's just put in the chat, how are the Circle Trust supporting this process? So they have been very supportive with all of the process, but I'm the head teacher of this school, and part of our trust is that we're our own identity. So a lot of the work has been by myself and with the team of excellent staff that I have, but they have been supportive with what they can in the background. They can't magic. I mean, if they could give me some more children, maybe they could take them from another trust school and give them to us, and then we wouldn't have needed to do this. But unfortunately, they can't do that. But they are supportive. They're there if we need them. Is that everybody's questions? Like I say, if you're like me, you go away, you think on things, and then you think of something, please do email in, or you can ring up, and I'll ring you back if I'm not available at the time. But I'm happy to answer questions. I think when the children have their transition, that will really help you, because transition is always a tricky time for parents. And I think that will help you as well. And then when we get to September, I know it's a long way off, I think once you see it in action, again, that will help you as well to understand how it's going to work and what it's going to do. But your questions really help me, because it makes me think of things that maybe I haven't thought of. So please do ask them if you think of something, or you're welcome to speak to Mrs. Clark as well if you see her at the gate. But thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And I will make sure that this recording gets out to you, and the slides as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Thank you.